Welcome back to my Fire Emblem Thracia 776 Ironman. A couple things before we begin. I'm sitting a little closer to the mic, so I might have to adjust the volume levels, and it might be a little bit different from what you're used to from the first few videos. Number two, you'll notice that this is in 2x speed. That's because the raw video is well over an hour, actually. This was one of my more indecisive chapters, and I think this will be better for just not wasting as much of your time. And I think it'll be just as watchable for the most part. For this reason, I have muted the volume. So unfortunately, you won't be able to hear the faint sounds of the game in the background for this one. I'm not going to do this for a lot of the videos, just a few. And on my end, I'm playing some of my own music to help drown out the neighbor who's playing like Football Manager or something and screaming as he always does. So that's not so awesome. I'll be listening to男達の別れby Fishmans. Not because it's Japanese or anything, just because it's an album that I know is long enough that I can play it without having to switch music every so often and click away from this. Although it did come out less than a year before this game first came out via the Flash cartridge, not the actual home console cartridge version of the game. I guess they would both be for home consoles, but you know what I mean. So I will try and put a link to the Spotify or something playlist in the description in case that sounds interesting to you. But anyway, this first turn here with Chapter 5, I guess I got a little catching up to do with the 2x speed. There's a lot going on here. This is one of those chapters where you have to go around in a big circle through a castle, and those chapters usually kind of suck, but I like this one. Let's talk about Evel and Nana first. Over here, taken prisoner and put into a pit to duel to the death with some pit fighters. Normally, this isn't that big of a deal because they can just kind of get away and get over to where the door is and trap themselves there, and Evel is still invincible. However, if that general, or I think it's a general, not a baron, spawns with an extra point of move, then you have to body block Nana with Evel on the first turn, and that makes things a little dicey. And that actually happened to me on this run. I'm actually kind of excited to be able to show it off. In reality, it doesn't really pose that huge of a threat, because what ends up happening is, it's happened to me once before actually, Evel just probably ends up critting them, and that's fine. That general has a slim lance, so if you're thinking, you can leave Nana just uncovered or anything like that, that guy actually has a chance to double her. So, and even if not, it's still dangerous for her. She won't come with a scroll or anything, so she can get crit. But if you just keep blocking her, you can get to the same general position that you would normally. Another thing here is that I put Asbel over on the left with Leaf supporting him, so that Asbel can take care of some of those mages. That huge block of mages will come around, they'll circle around and try to meet up with you. And the way this map is designed, I'm pretty sure, is so that they should meet up with you right around where another enemy group is, right at the entrance to the pit. And that's pretty nasty design. We'll see how it turns out here. And then everybody else just kind of heads over and takes care of this first little group. It's good to lead with Fergus with the flame sword, provided he has enough weapon rank for it, because then he can take less damage from the mages with Karen's support. And he can also take an armor pretty well. So unless you have like base level Fergus, this isn't an issue. In that case, you could just use Dalsin or somebody. But you can probably just hack it, even if you have a really weak party. That group is not the one you have to be worried about. You'll see that I have Asbel run up with the rest of the group, with the aid of a movement star, which was nice. And I just have Leaf stay behind and take out a mage with the light brand. I can do that because you may already know that once you open the door to the pit, eventually, that makes Leaf teleport across the map, basically. I mean, not really. He walks across the map, but basically he breaks the laws of the game in order to get over there. So he's not in any real hurry unless you want him to help with the guys in the lower right or so, or if you want to wait a while before opening up the pit. But there's a lot of cutscenes that can happen in the pit, and some of them are like fork conditions, basically, if you get like Nana killed, for example. But once Avel kills at least one guy, or I think maybe it just happens anyway if you cross a certain point, or if a certain number of turns lapses, Marita will appear from one of the pit entrances with the Shadow Sword, which is like a brave sword, and that, ostensibly is sort of a threat to Avel, but because she's still invincible, it's really not. As long as you get your positioning down, unless you throw Avel's sword away, then she's in danger of being captured, but otherwise it's not a big deal. What you do want to worry about is which pit fighters are remaining once you open that door, because they'll keep spawning, and they'll spawn more powerful ones as you go. So if you can all help it, you want to kind of time it so that Avel and maybe Nana, if you get her in on the action, have killed some of those guys like right as you open the door, and that way no more will spawn. It's tricky though, so especially in an Ironman, you kind of just got to do the best you can. And if you can't get all of them killed in that fashion, then you pretty much just have to get Dawson up there. And with the Brave Axe, he actually does pretty well against those pit fighters, even the stronger ones. As long as he has a scroll, make sure he has a scroll. Make sure anybody you value at all or think you might need has a scroll. Just tattoo that on your forearm or make a sign if you want to play this game Ironman. And even if you don't, it's just good to avoid so that you don't have to restart all the time. Scrolls, scrolls, scrolls. Here are some more cutscenes from the pit. Cutscenes, cutscenes, cutscenes. There's not really much to talk about as far as the Japanese goes in this one. I actually sort of wish that I had gotten some of the more conditional scenes in this, because you barely see those in people's streams and videos, even in like non-Ironman. People just don't generally go for them or get them triggered because it's kind of hard to get some of these units killed in order to get specific scenes. Maybe I will include some of that text in the description of the video as well. Right about at this time, you got to start thinking about who you want to lead with up at this group of soldiers and the armor. And it's good to have your thieves up front, maybe with a door key rather than a lockpick, because what you can do is you can open the door to the pit with just a door key, and then they can be capture bait on the very next enemy phase. And I think that's what I do here, although it's been actually a while since I played this actual chapter. I'm a bit farther ahead than what you see here. And I suppose I can talk now about just how well it worked out, which pit fighters I had left here before opening the door. It's just this sword master, basically. I believe I'm about to open the pit after taking care of this soldier here. Gonna get Matcha in on the mix. She's units like Dawson, if you're moving this fast, won't be up there in time. and he doesn't have a movement star or anything like that. So that kind of sucks. But the rest of the gang just about is all the way there, and I'm way ahead of the mages, which is great. I think, actually, from what I remember, some of them didn't move, weirdly. I think there's always like one that doesn't move no matter what, but I think I had some others just decide not to move as well, which was very bizarre. Maybe it has something to do with like having a specific spread of stats that gave them different AI or something, but I could just be misremembering anyway. If you can lead the pit fighters over to where they are here, where you see here, it's easy to get Asbel to be able to help chip these guys down or even kill. Especially, even with Leaf support, he might have kind of shaky hit rate on some of these promoted units, but if you're willing to use some Graph Caliber, that really skies his hit rate. So this group of the Armor Knight and soldiers, they can be kind of strong. I think at least one of them has one of those pretty powerful, kind of low hit weapons. So you want to be careful as Avil gets a little bit stoned here. No judgment there. The nice thing is that you have Nana now, and Nana has Charm. So that gives plus 10 hit and avoid to anybody in range, and she gives double bonuses to Leaf because she gives support bonus to Leaf, and a few other units in the game, although I don't think any of them are here. So a couple things you want to start thinking about now is that I don't know if I have cursored over it that much, but in the very lower right of the map on the like outdoor part is a chest with a magic ring in it. And a lot of people like to pass it up because it's pretty out of the way. I do not. I just spend, like 3 or 4, maybe 5 extra turns getting it because I'm not trying to LTC or anything, and because I do think that magic ring is pretty useful. There's a couple other in the game, but I think this one is the most impactful. And what you can do is actually send one of your mounted units, which if you don't have much experience with this game and you're playing it, you might have forgotten that these guys are even supposed to be mounted. But if you move them out there, you can choose the mount command. You can't do it like in advance or anything. They have to be on that tile. So it kind of adds this little hitch whenever you want to go from indoor to outdoor, because they have to waste an extra turn like stopping short and either mounting or dismounting. Perhaps that's obvious, but anyway, what I like to do is give the chess key to Brighton. This was one of the few instances where I actually had to get up and use the bathroom, by the way, is why that hung there for a while. Anyway, I give the chess key to Brighton because he's not really that useful in this chapter. Maybe sometimes for like capturing or like taking a capture off of somebody else. You could also send Karen, but I like to keep Karen around for support bonuses for Fergus. So I give the chess key to Brighton. I sent him down there. You can also send like one of your thieves if you really want, because both Lara and Lithus have movement stars. So you can get lucky and finish the chapter even quicker. But those guys are useful in other spots too. So it's kind of a pick your poison situation. If you're playing quickly, don't bother. But if not, I think it's well worth logicking out. So if you don't end up getting here fast enough, like I did this time, and you have to fight the mages as well, there is a pure water you can get from one of the... I mean, I already got it because it's on one of the bishops that's in the lower right. That's where they start. And you can put it on whoever you think is best for taking on those mages. That might be a physical unit, because at that point they might be converging on you like right as those soldiers and armor are getting ready to attack you also. So it might be good to have somebody who can take on both aspects of it. Sometimes that might be Dawson, sometimes it might be Fergus. The chips can fall pretty differently, so just beware of that if you're Iron Manning or just playing normally here. But I was able to control it really well, and yet still I was pretty indecisive in a lot of spots here. I saw this, there was this one part where I was looking through a lot of inventories. I must have lost some sort of item, and that can happen to you in Manster because you're constantly trading stuff around, trading things off of people you want to use as bait, stuff like that. This is another map just in general, not just the guys in the pit. You want to check movement ranges because there's a lot of units on this map, and some of them are going to have more move. I think one of the archers up there has extra move, so that made it a little different in regard to how I had to position myself once I get up there. But there's actually, I'm trying to think, there's a boss up there. I think it might be the only like boss type unit that's on this entire map, at least that you can fight. I mean, Raedric and Veld are in the center there, but I don't think you can fight them even if you wanted to. I don't think you can get to them, and they probably have the invincible flag anyway. So even if you could reach them, you couldn't do some shenanigans where you try and get them to capture somebody and then fight them, which you can do with Galzus, by the way. I didn't mention that if you wait long enough and kill enough pit fighters, Galzus will appear in the center, which has never happened to me, even in my blind runs, or blind run, I should say, and then like my next couple runs, which didn't go all that well either. None of them went as poorly as my first run. So I might have mentioned already, as Lifis has a little dicey moment here. I don't even know if I have a scroll on him. I do not, so that was a risk there. But it was a necessary one because I think he took a tome off of another mage. So it wasn't really a mistake per se. But anyway, on my first ever run of this game, it was blind, and I got to this chapter only having died once. Because I got Leaf killed in that room with the treasures in the previous chapter. Even though those units aren't that strong, I don't remember if he got crit or what. But that's why I always give him the life ring, is because of stuff like that. And so I reloaded and I did that chapter I passed it with flying colors, and then I got to this one. And I didn't exactly understand what the game expected me to do with the pit. I knew that there was a door on the right there, and if I had thought about it more, I probably would have said to myself, okay, I guess I should move them in that direction and just get to the door quickly. But I really didn't know. I didn't know if it was like a story event kind of where neither of them were in real danger, or if they, expected me to use both Avel and Nana to fight those guys, but I did, and Nana got killed, and I kept playing. I didn't want to reload as much as possible. It was already not an Iron Man anymore, but I just left Nana dead. And so when I opened the pit, I got that special scene that you don't see that much, where Leaf talks to Avel, and it's really pretty messed up, and they talk about how she's lying dead on the floor there. So I kind of wish I had gotten to see that in Japanese this time, because I haven't ever looked that up or anything like that. I probably will after this, and like I said, maybe I'll include some of that in the description. So I think that was my only death for a while in the rest of that run, until I got like a couple chapters after this, because there are a couple trouble spots coming up where if you go in blind, you don't really know so much what the game expects of you. But back to this run here, once you get to this part of the map, it's pretty much a no-brainer just to lead with Dalsin, just because he has the most defense out of anybody, and all of these guys are physical. I think that mage up there, I had stolen their tome already, and there's another mage coming, but I don't think they're in range, or if they are, it doesn't really matter. And I'm sending Brighton out for the chest, and it's one of those situations where it not only does it not make sense to have more guys in range of these bows, but there's just nobody else who's really useful for that, as Brighton takes a shot there. Sometimes, because I play Berwick Saga as well, and in that game horses can take damage and die, so sometimes now when I play any other game in the series, or like the greater Fire Emblem / Saga Continuum, sometimes I'm like, oh no, my horse, but it's, and then I have to shake my head and laugh. I think Asbel just missed a 99 there. That's pretty aggravating. And wasted a Graph Caliber use as well. Always awesome. I think I make another kind of poor decision here with in regard to who to attack with Fergus. And I think it does end up in a situation where technically somebody could have died, but luckily at this point, as long as you mindfully place Nana and Leaf, some of these units might be getting either like double bonuses via Nana's Charm and Leaf support, like Dalsin for example, or also Asbel, because he gets Leaf support. And let me take a moment to talk a little bit more about Nana. You know she has Charm, because I just told you that, but she also has a couple of other features or just things about her that you should know, especially if you're Ironmanning. Number one, she has the Earth Sword, just like she does in Fire Emblem 4. And in this game it has like 60 uses or something ridiculous like that. I have never used it up, so you should use it liberally. It'll absorb HP, and a lot of people like to give her the Wrath manual once you get that, and I've done that, and it is good. But you should know that it hits on magic, so that's good. You can attack even some pretty strong enemies like this general, perhaps, at range, even with like a base Nana, and do some good damage. And she will eventually double with it, which is pretty good. But you should know that Nana is also pretty weak, and she can be killed easily, even in these chapters here, right after you get her. So try not to leave her exposed, at least in the beginning, but she does promote into Paladin, so she is sort of a combat unit. She doesn't gain any staff rank upon promotion, and she starts with like E staves, I think. So you can't really ever expect her to be like, I mean, you might hear a lot about units in this game, staff users that you can expect to be able to build up into A-rank staff users who can use warp and all sorts of cool staves. A realistic benchmark for Nana to reach would be like C. And don't get me wrong, C staves is useful. You can use things at that level like Torch and Restore, and both of those things are very useful, and it's always good to have more guys who can use that stuff, especially since it takes the heat off of some of the other units who are using the higher level staves. I want to mention that you saw that I captured that general boss here. Normally I wouldn't do that, but it just happens so that, like, when I went to go steal that mage's tome before, it made the boss want to capture Lithis, and I didn't plan it that way, but I figured once he did nerf his own stats by capturing Lithis, it was kind of like, well, why not capture this boss? So that's why I did it, but normally I would say don't bother doing that. The next obstacle is this group up on the upper left portion of the map, just to the left of our units here. And it's the same basic group as the soldiers and the armor knight that we dealt with in the upper rightish portion of the map. But this time there is a bishop, or like a sage, or whatever it is, who has meteor. And what I like to do is have Fergus use that pure water and just charge in there and take on like most of those soldiers in one turn, and then clean them up in the next turn, and have Fergus capture that sage, or whatever he is. Not just because I want the meteor necessarily, and I think he has a couple other things on him, but just because I don't like to sit back and just soak up all the meteors first. Although you can do that, and that's more reliable. Maybe if you're Ironmaning, it is a good idea, depending on what you have remaining and how good your Fergus is. Because he might not be able to take on these guys necessarily. Maybe check their stats. But I felt pretty confident in this one. I don't think I even checked all those guys all that much. But I think Fergus had at least like one weird miss here that he shouldn't have. And it's hard to get support partners in range, because then the sage will probably go for them, or the bishop, or I'm pretty sure it's a bishop. And I don't think he can kill Karen necessarily. I think he might be able to kill Nana with a crit, although Leaf should give her some crit avoid. But if you get Nana hurt in this map, you can't heal her unless she has a vulnerary, and you might want to conserve those. Note that if you get shot at, and even if your guy doesn't counter or anything, you actually accumulate fatigue. And let me talk about Nana and fatigue real quick here. There's basically two ways you can go about using Nana in Mancer. One is you could just fatigue the absolute heck out of her and build up her staff rank some, and that should give you the head start that you need in order to getting her to cease staves. But what I like to do these days is hold her back a bit and use her where you need her, like here, where I'm using her as a part of an attack formation, and for healing somewhat. But I like to manage it just because I like to use her in the first chapter after you get out of the Master arc, because she gives support in two ways to Finn, and that makes capturing that boss that I mentioned before much more reliable. So that's what I recommend you do, and it's made that chapter a lot less painless for me, because sometimes you get like just a really good Finn that can do anything in this game, but more often than not he'll struggle a little bit and have to take extra turns. You'll see what I mean when we get there, if we get there. And then after these guys are dead, it's kind of just, there's this group of like assorted guys down in the lower left. I don't know if I've moused over them too much. There's a sniper, there's two mages, and there's another bishop, or like a priest or something, but he doesn't have any attacking magic or anything. I think he has a physic. But the weird thing about enemy units with physic in this game is that they don't always seem to want to use it ever. Sometimes I've seen them use it like a handful of times total in all of my playthroughs, and I think it actually happened a couple times in this playthrough, which was aggravating, because otherwise it's just like free physic basically. And then you also have to make the decision whether or not you want to fight these two dark mages on the left. And they are very, very strong. They have like 25 attack power or more. And they're essentially guarding those two chests. And also, if you aren't looking and you leave your guys on the left of this narrow hallway, they can get attacked from there. And in all likelihood, they'll probably kill anybody you put there. Like, maybe not in one shot, but they have Jormungandr tomes, which I don't know if we've had to discuss yet. Not only do they do damage, but they also poison. And poison in this game is nasty because it never wears off unless you cure it with an antitoxin or with a restore staff. And it can do anywhere from like 1 to like 4 or 5 damage a turn, I think. So it's not like in, like, say, Fire Emblem 7, where it's like you can just laugh off poison most of the time. In this one, you gotta keep your eye on it, and also do some extra math just to make sure that the Jormungandr isn't gonna, like, say, leave you at 2 HP, great, but then maybe the poison will kill you. And sometimes this ends up being like a nasty combo with another Dark Tome that I don't think either of these guys have, but I'll try and mention it in a chapter where they do. So what I like to do at this point is clear that bottom group first, and basically you want to have like Fergus or somebody like Asbel bait the mage, and I think I just went ahead and, yeah, I just had the sniper attack him. And you got to be careful, you got to try and figure out their attack speed just to make sure that whoever you put there doesn't get doubled by that sniper, because he can kill probably some people that might surprise you. If all else fails, you could probably just put Dulce in there to take the hit, although you might not be able to attract the mage only, unless, like, depending on how much extra move they might spawn with, so just always check that as usual. I'll probably say that another 20 times before this run is over. But assuming that you do want to take care of these dark mages and get those chests, I think one of the chests is a lockpick, and the other one has something like minorly useful. Like I think it's one of the lesser rings, like a luck ring or a skill ring, I think it is. So they're okay. I usually go for this because I've figured out a way that you can kill them pretty reliably. Basically, it's you just set everybody up right outside the door without being able to be attacked through the wall. And then you can have Fergus run in, and with the Brave Sword is pretty much a guaranteed kill on one of those guys. And if you can get Dulcin in the right position, he can take out one. You might be able to do them both on player phase, but if you can at least kill one, the other one, probably, if you have the right support partners in range, probably won't kill or even hit your guys like Fergus and Dulcin, whoever's in range there. So if you're mindful about this, it's not that big of a deal, but you shouldn't feel bad if you are so intimidated by them that you just want to skip them, because a lockpick and a skill ring aren't the biggest deal in the world. The rest of the stuff in this map, like the magic ring, which is mindless and just wastes time, is a better use of your time and effort. Believe it or not, what I end up doing here in the last few minutes is having Asbel wait behind and get that magic ring. And you might be thinking, well, does Asbel really need that magic ring? And honestly, no. He probably will cap magic if you use him enough, if you use him as much as I do. But it's good to give him that head start. And I have had sort of magic screwed Asbels, at least early on. So if you want to lean on him heavily for next chapter and make it very, very easy and in some ways trivial, then it's actually good to give him that magic ring. There's nobody else who really uses it that well, I think. You might think I'm crazy for saying that, but if you really think about it, especially in early game here, do you really want it sitting around in the convoy? I don't know. There's an argument for using it on some sort of staff user later, because I don't know if I mentioned that a lot of status staves and stuff like that, in fact, just about all of them, you can only use them on an enemy if the user's magic is higher than the enemy's magic. I think there might be one staff that like randomly does not work that way, but I don't think it's a useful one particularly. I'll get back to you on that. But there's not much to talk about in these last couple of minutes here. We're just going to be looking at guys running around, waiting for Brighton, that sort of stuff, getting Dawson up to the rescue point after taking a detour to capture that priest. And you definitely want to go out of your way for that, because that physic is really useful. Even if it's just for staff grinding for Safi or something like that. But there's not really an outro for this chapter. It's just kind of Leaf muses to himself about coming back for Avel, who is very, very stoned. And, you don't want to kill her buzz or anything, so. You can also, if you're waiting for Brighton or Karen or somebody, sort your inventories a little bit. This is kind of it's not really the first time you have some space to breathe and rearrange inventories, but like in the last chapter with Seti, basically keeping the reinforcements away from you, you can do it there too. But a lot of time I just get impatient until I get to the point where I really can't avoid but rearrange a little bit. I think I give the skill ring to Asbel here just to give him a little bit of extra crit, which is nice. The skill ring is another one of those rings. It's like I never know who to give it to, really. Rings do sell for a lot, though, so keep that in mind. But that is all the time we have for today. I will see you in Chapter 6. Thanks for watching.